Hello everyone. My name is Sherry and this is the third installment to the hat series. And we are going to make another toque. It's more fitted toque. It's rounded on the top. And I made this out of fleece. Oh, it's hard to see in the camera because everything's backwards. Okay, where are we going? There we go. So I put some embroidery on the brim of the hat, and you can see I was off a little bit. I should have went up a little higher, but I think it worked quite well. Very ridge hat, and as you can see, it's fitted. This is another 22-inch hat. Very easy to make, and the hat series videos I know are quite long, but that's because they're tutorials and I am trying to make them shorter. And I think I told you in the first hat series when we were making these hats that I was going to make a a wool hat. And this one is, you're supposed to cock your hat. I can't do it. Anyway, worked out really well. The 9551 patterns that we're using to do parts 1, 2, and 3 are all for fleece or stretchy. So we made the first hat out of fleece. This one is the same, and it's out of wool. And it worked really well. I just went up two sizes. I've been making 22-inch hats. My head measures 23, and so this was a 24, which is a large size. And the reason why I always make a 22 because it's the most popular hat size. I used to make quite a few hats, and they are always the best seller is a 22 size. Plus they will fit children, and so that turned out pretty good. I put interfacing in it and lining. Didn't turn out as good as I thought. There's lining, pretty lining. I tried to make it professional. So I just wanted to show you that you can make them out of a non-stretch, because fleece has stretch to it, like this one. You just have to make them bigger. So let's see, does my seam match up? I think I have this on crooked. Here we go. So another hat. So you could make this out of t-shirt fabric if you didn't want a thick hat, if you're in a climate that's not as cold as the Canadian climate, because we're right in winter right now. I know March is coming up and the UK is saying flowers are blooming, but they will not be here. I can almost guarantee that. Not for a while yet. So I think that part 4 will be a hat that hopefully everyone will want to make, and not just for cold weather. So, and plus the hat series is for the long term, because then you can just play along with them for any hat for any time of the year. So let's get to making this hat, shall we? Our pattern, piece for our hat, and this will be the band. So you need a rectangular piece of paper, and the band is, this is for a 22-inch hat, and you want to, your pattern piece will be 8 1/4 here and 11 1/2 inches this way, and you're going to want to cut it on the fold. This is using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, which will be here, and so you want to cut that on the fold right here. Second piece, there's only 2 pieces to this hat. We're gonna make the pattern piece for the top. So I'm taking a piece of paper that's folded in half. So you need a piece of paper that's around 9 inches, and this is 8 1/4. So we're going to fold that in half. We have 3 1/2 inches this way and 8 1/4 this way. So you're going to measure 3 inches up and put a little mark right here. So 3 inches, and we want a curve, so I'm going to use this curved ruler. You could freehand draw it, because we're going to go from the fold. Let's see if my freehand will work. We want to join those two up on a slight curve. Be nice if my marker would mark. So let's see if the ruler does any better of a job. So we want to draw a line. So this is 3 inches from the bottom. We're going to draw a curve. Then we're going to cut this off because we don't need this. And your pattern piece should look like that. Now you could clean up your edges, but I think that's going to work fine. So there will be a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around your hat pattern. So you need to cut 4 of these, and you cut 4. So let's cut out our hat. So now I'm going to cut out the band. I'm going to use a coordinating fabric for this hat. I think that will look nice together. The gray ribbing and a sweater knit. It's going to be a lighter weight hat. So we only need to cut 1 of the band. So I'm going to cut this out, and you cut it on the fold. First thing we're going to do is fold our band, our hat band, our long piece here. We're going to fold it in half lengthwise, because that's how it's going to sew onto the hat. And we're going to fold it in half again, and we're going to mark it with a little snip, which I have already done. And I will stick a pin in there so you can see where my middle is. I'll just do it again. All right. So there's our middle. Now We have our middle and our middle. Now, this is, if you're going to put embroidery or a person's name, so that embroidery right there is not completely centered. It should have been up a little higher. But this time I'm just going to attach, surprise, a maple leaf to the brim or the band of this hat. So this will be attached to the hat, this seam here. So I'm going to have 1/2 inch seam allowance. So my maple leaf might be a little on the large side, but so I have the center of that lined up here, and my maple leaf is not perfect. But to make it pop a little bit more, I'm going to put a piece under here. And so I'm going to pin that in place. You can baste it, use interfacing. And I am going to put this underneath. Actually, I should put it this way. I'm going to do it this way. So I'm going to trim this a little bit. It'll make the maple leaf stand out a little bit more. So if you're going to put a name or whatever you're going to put on here, a symbol of some sort, this is the time to do it before you construct your hat. Right, I'm going to stitch around this, and then I'm going to do a zigzag, nothing fancy, and I'll show you what it looks like. Sewed around my maple leaf, and you can tell that it looks raised up a little bit. And the thing I'm going to do next, I'm going to use these scissors. So I'm going to cut this off. I should have used a bigger piece, but so I'm going to cut, and I think that looks okay. Without cutting your hat. I think I just did. All right, so there's my big maple leaf. You can see some ink marks showing through, but it's padded. I have that piece on the back, and I just didn't make it long enough, but that's going to make the maple leaf pop more after I zigzag around it, which will help hide some of your ink marks and even up, because it's not a perfectly symmetrical maple leaf, but so that's not bad. And fleece doesn't fray, so if you like it like this, if you're better than me and don't have the ink marks, you can leave it like that. So I'm going to zigzag around it, and I'll show you what it looks like after that, and then we'll sew the hat together. Alright, so now we have our maple leaf or embellishment of whatever you're going to put on there. Now we are going to sew right sides together, and we're going to sew 1/2 inch seam allowance along here. So we'll do that. And we're also going to sew 1/2 inch seam allowance. We have our 4 pieces of our crown. We're going to sew one side. So now we need to clip our seams of the crown. We're going to cut them down to 1/4 of an inch, or you could serge it, but where this is fleece, you don't need to. If you were doing a knit, I would. So we're going to clip those. Alright, so our seams are clipped on those 2 pieces. We're going to take our band, fold it wrong sides together with our maple leaf, and we're just going to fold it in half. I did my whole top stitching back seam together. That's a habit I have. So we're going to set that aside, and now we have these 2 pieces sewn together. So now we need to sew these together. So we're going to take our 2 crown pieces we sewed and then sew the whole thing together. So we're going to take a 1/2 inch seam allowance and go all the way around, and we're going to match up our seam right here. You can either nest your seam, or open it, just as long as it's matched up as best you can. I'm going to stick a pin in there. I usually don't, but anyway, so we're going to sew all the way around our hat. So now that we have our seam sewn all the way around, your hat should look like that, and we're going to trim the seam down to 1/4 inch yet again. And we're almost done. Easiest hat ever. Alright, so we have our crown sewn together, and we have our band sewn together. We have our middle of our front, and we know where the back is. So now we have to do that for this one. So you don't want to use the seams for middle and back. So we're going to fold it like this, right? So it doesn't matter which side. That could be the front or the back. And so we have a little notch in the center, or a nick. Get rid of that thread. So now we have to sew this to the band. So what we're going to do is slide this inside, match up our notches, you want it to look like this. You have your seam facing you, and we're going to check and make sure our embellishment is going to be on the right side. So I'm just going to stick a couple pins in here, and then we want to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around the bottom. Where's our back? Make sure those are lined up. Line up those seams. Stick a pin in there. Get a couple more pins in here. Looks like it's all going to line up nicely. Let's turn it around to see if our embellishment is going to be on the front of our hat. So the seam will be on the outside. There, we're going to be good. So let's sew this on. Half inch all the way around. Alright, so we've sewn all the way around the band of our hat. So now we need to trim this seam about 1/4 of an inch. Then we just have one more seam to do, and we're going to be all done. It's hard to do in front of the camera. It's a very simple hat to make. And these make really great gifts. And I don't know if I've mentioned, but this is a unisex hat. Good for men, women, or children of all ages. And of course you can make this in a t-shirt or sweater knit. We have that seam. I might clip some more off of that. We want to sew this seam down just so it's not sticking out. So I'll probably cut some more off that, and then we will sew that down. So there's our hat. Let's see. Turn it inside out, or right side out, not inside out. Turn it right side out, trim off any loose threads. Now let's see if our embellishment is going to be on show. And that, my friends, is what you call a hat. Is how you make this style hat. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.